You ever walk into someone's freshly painted house and instantly know they regret it? They're smiling saying, yeah, we love it. But their eyes are screaming, this was $1,000 mistake. And you can't even blame them. Because honestly, paint colors are sneaky. You think you're making a simple choice, but one undertone, one finish, one bad lighting situation, and suddenly your cozy beige looks like nasty expired yogurt. Today I want to go over a few paint mistakes that every color expert hates. Not because they're bad people, but because we've seen them 1,000 times and they're always avoidable. So let's start with one that drives me quite insane. The undertone twin problem. And this happens when everything in your space, your walls, trim, ceiling, furniture, all share the exact same undertone. Everything's warm or everything's cool. It's like someone discovered the color grayish and said, perfect, paint the whole house in this. And yeah, it looks fine until you realize your room has the personality of a premium plus saltine cracker. Color needs tension. You want warmth and coolness to bounce off each other a little. Warm wall, go slightly crisper on the trim. Cool wall, add something earthy in your decor to keep it human. Otherwise, your room just sort of dissolves into nothing. Then there's contrast chaos. This is the person who heard contrast adds depth and decided to turn their house into a chessboard. Jet black doors, super bright white walls, dark floors, light countertops, and every edge is screaming for attention. Look, contrast is kind of like seasoning. A little makes everything pop, but too much and your blood pressure is going through the roof. What you actually want is gradation. Layers of tone that shift naturally, not a jump cut from heaven to hell between every single surface. Next up, the finish fumble. People underestimate how powerful paint sheen is. Gloss, matte, satin. They're not just finish options, they're lighting tools in a way. I've seen people paint an entire living room in semi-gloss because it'll look fancy. No, it'll look like your walls are laminated. Not a good look. Very cheap looking. Flat and matte, calming. Eggshell, that's your workhorse. You got a subtle glow, hides scuffs fairly well, easy to clean most importantly. And then semi-gloss, great for trim, doors, accents. Gloss? Honestly, unless you're painting your front door or a 1950s diner, maybe not. And let's talk about the temperature trap. This one's tricky because on paper, it sounds right. You pick a warm palette in general, so beiges, golds, creamy whites, and think, cozy. I'm relaxed at home. This is nice. And then 6 months later, you're sweating in your own house like it's a log cabin in July. Or you go all cool grays and blues and suddenly you feel like you're at the ice hotel in wherever that is. I think in Finland. A good room has a mix. Warm wood tones to balance cooler walls or cooler accents to break up warmth. Humans like visual temperature variation. It's literally in our biology. Now here's one that nobody talks about, the directional lighting trap. This is when you pick a color based on how it looks in one room, but ignore the fact that your next room faces a different direction. Natural light changes color all day. North light typically is cooler, south light is warm and golden, east light is a bit soft and gray, while west light can be harsher and almost orangey sometimes. So that soft white that looked amazing and dreamy in your kitchen, in your north-facing hallway, it's now gray. In your west-facing living room, it's a bit yellowy. Before you paint, check your samples at different times of day. Morning, afternoon, evening. You'll save yourself a weekend of regret. Then we've got room-to-room roulette. Love this one. This one's fun because it always starts with good intentions. You pick a color for one room, and it's great. So the next room, you go for something different. And the next, until your hallway looks like a paint store aisle. People think variety equals personality. But if you don't consider flow, your house ends up feeling like every door leads to a completely new season of a show. You don't need to use the same color everywhere. Give the colors a relationship, maybe a similar undertone family, or you can go for some complementary depth, even just repeating accent colors. You want a story, not a playlist on shuffle. And here's another one, ignoring the bosses. The bosses in this case are your fixed elements, your floors, tile, countertops, cabinetry. You can try to boss them around, but they don't listen. They've got tenure. They're staying. If your flooring has a pink undertone and you pick a wall color with a green undertone, congratulations, you've just built visual warfare. They're just going to compete with each other. And the worst part, you don't even notice it until it's done half the time. And then you're standing there wondering why everything looks weird. Always test your colors next to your permanent materials. Get your paint sample, or in my opinion, get a sampleized board stick it right next to that problematic tile, not just in the middle of the wall. The edges is where the real battle happens, because then you can really see what's going on. Now let's talk about lighting laziness. The single biggest reason your color doesn't look right has nothing to do with the paint. It's oftentimes your bulbs. People drop like $1,000 on paint, but then keep the same nasty yellow fluorescent bulbs from 2007. Then they wonder why their cool neutral looks like mac and cheese. If you're serious about color, get your lighting sorted first. LED bulbs are your best friend, especially ones you can customize and tweak, going from a nice warm glow to more of a neutral, clean lighting, and they let your colors actually exist in the real world as they were intended. And finally, overconfidence in white. This one's universal. Everyone thinks white is safe. White walls, white trim, white ceiling, boom, done. Except there are about 1,000 whites. Cool ones, warm ones, muted ones, muddy ones, stark ones. Pick the wrong one, and suddenly your room either looks dirty or blinding. Pure white on walls, usually a mistake. It highlights every shadow, every imperfection. Off-whites with a hint of warmth are almost always safer. They look softer, cleaner, and they kind of age better in my opinion. But here's the truth. Paint color mistakes aren't really about taste. They're about assumptions. People assume what works on Instagram and TikTok will work in their house. They assume neutral means safe. They assume bright means better. But color doesn't care what you assume. It reacts to everything around it. The light, the materials, even the furniture finish. So if you've ever walked into your freshly painted room and thought, why does this feel wrong? Congratulations, you're a human being. The trick here is learning why. And once you understand that color is about context, not just preference, that's when everything starts to click. Now I'm curious, what's the worst paint mistake you've ever made? Drop it in the comments. The more painful, the better. Because hey, we've all been there. Some of us just talk about it on YouTube.